Good
Recording in
evening, and this
progress.
call this Town of Essex Select Board meeting for Monday, February 26th order. First up on our agenda additions and changes. Do we have any additions?
None from staff.
Before I ask if there are any from the Select Board, I will note, you will notice there is a change in the agenda. The consent items are our first. If you do have any item on the consent agenda you need clarification on, that you would like discussion or that you have questions on, now would be the time to out of this. Is there any addition? None. We will move ahead to public to be heard. Public to be heard is the portion of our meeting where the public can raise concerns, give feedback to the select board. So if anybody in the room, you can raise your physical hand. Anyone online, in the Zoom meeting, you can, at the bottom of your screen, you have a reactions button. If you click the reactions button, you'll have an option to raise your virtual. So, and I will.
Betsy Dunn, and thank you for letting me speak. I have a couple of questions for the board. I received, happily, I got the Essex News, and there was an article that was about what was on the ballot. And Articles 1 and 2 are very clear. They're exactly as they should be. Article 3 and 4 are not stated correctly. It concerns me. Article 3 says, shall the town voters require the town annual report to list the location of commercial properties that receive a municipal tax stabilization benefit within the report fiscal year, the amount of that benefit, and the property owner. That part is correct. But you have added a statement that almost nullifies the reason for the petition. You have added in parentheses, this is advisory. It's not advisory. We're asking it for be required to be in the annual report. In Article 4, you've correctly stated that the petition requests that the voters will require the town's annual report to list the names, position, title, salaries, and benefits of all town employees within the year's annual report. Again, you have added the term advisory. We're not asking it to be advisory. We want it to be required. And we want it so, and when we went and talked to people, we said that this would be, you don't have to sign it. You can sign it just so we can get on the vote, but this would be required of the town to do. But at the bottom of this article, you state that the town clerk received 2 petitions, she did, that were requested as a non-binding or advisory articles. Further, it states that the select board may warn the advisory or non-binding articles that are petitioned. Advisory articles do not require any action. The voters who signed these petitions and those of us who took the time to circulate the petitions do want these articles we are asking for if the voters agree to them. They have to vote to be in the next annual report. I find the action that you have taken is quite egregious. The advisory statement completely gives a completely different slant to what's being requested. And if you personally did not write the article for the Essex News, you still have the responsibility and the accountability for ensuring that information on a vote is correctly stated in its entirety. Whoever wrote this up, the responsibility falls back to this board. What I'd like to know this evening is how are you going to rectify this situation so that people don't think that this is an advisory thing that can just be like, look, they voted, okay, we're not going to do it. We're asking it to be required to be in the town annual report.
Did so on the advice of counsel. Any item that's brought forward as a public is not a binding. So we put that in there in an effort to be transparent. That the public that comes out through and is non-binding. At our last meeting, we had a comment. I don't anyone on the board, unless it was something that would vote against the public, but it does take action by the select in order to move forward.
Yeah, I would just add, if I may, Betsy, as Tracy said, the select board, myself, votes pass. We fully intend to include that information in the report next year. The difference is that, as part of the legal counsel, there's not statute that says if this passes, it absolutely put it in the. It's not a charter change. It's not a ordinance change where then Vermont statute takes effect and those then take effect within the town ordinance charter. It's not a budget vote. That is then the select board is beholden to. By its nature, it's not something that has to be done, but I think the select board has said, absolutely, if that's the will of the people, that's what's going to be done. Just looking at options of years from now, the select board may look to cut costs in the annual report and not, have a smaller report, not have that information. Speaking from a staff standpoint, it wasn't totally clear from some of those questions. I think the commercial tax stabilization is pretty straightforward. The question about staff salaries talks about printing it, including staff salaries for the year of the annual report. Fiscal year, is it calendar year? Is it
It
gross
does say the
wages?
fiscal
Is it
year.
net wages? Is it
It does
base
say the
salary?
fiscal year.
Okay, but some of that information wasn't entirely clear. So
Oh.
going forward, it was an advisory vote of we will do the best we can to comply. But for all those reasons, that's why it's listed as advisory.
So anything that's taken and is put forward from a petition is an advisory thing. Is
Some
that
would
what you're
be-
saying?
no,
I'm just trying to understand this.
Some would be, but there's Vermont statute lays out something like an ordinance change, and our charter has this. If 5% of the registered voters sign a petition to change an ordinance, that's binding. If 5% of the voters sign a petition to do a charter change, that's binding. This is asking the select board to do something that they politically would comply with, but if for some reason they decided not to, there's nothing in statute that says it has to be, basically.
Because these are just line items. And line items don't have to be put into the annual report.
I guess, what do you mean by line items?
Well, it seems to me if I'm doing a budget and I'm looking at the people who are receiving monies from the town,
Mhm.
and you put their names in, those become line items. The people who are in one role, this is the cost of their hiring. It's line item, and I would think line items would not become advisory; they'd be binding. I'm just surprised at that. That's how the lawyer came across and decided on that. But I am happy to hear that you are going to include it if it is voted that way by the voters. That feels good. Thank you.
Good evening, Ken Signorello. How are you all? I'm going to speak to somewhat of the same things. I'll try not to be redundant. Yes, Essex News is really important. I think it's a great effort and a lot of great information is included. On this particular item, I think that the information that was included is not accurate. Where it says the town clerk received 2 petitions signed by voters that were requested as non-binding. The voters did not request it to be non-binding. They are non-binding. They are advisory. We didn't request it that way. So that's an implication that we asked for that. It wasn't us who put the advisory on there. You guys did. So it's not really fair to try to pin it on the petitioners. Not accurate. Secondly, the select board may warn advisory or non-binding articles that are petitions. Advisory articles do not require that action is taken. That part's true. However, the select board shall warn. The statutes are very clear I'm reading it from the statute. The warning shall also contain any article or articles requested by a petition signed by at least 5% of the voters of the municipality and filed blah, 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 within 47 days. Not may, shall. So what this is attempting to do is give the select board credit for putting it on the ballot. You had a chance. We came to you 2 months before. You didn't do it. We had to go out and knock on 500, 200 or 300 doors, get 500 signatures. We get the credit. The select board must put it on the ballot. This implies that you guys put it on the ballot. You had to. You had no choice. So, I know that the chair of the select board knows this because at the town meeting talk, he said very specifically that the select board was required to put this on the ballot. He knows. I don't know if you were there, Tracy, but I'm sure that you're aware of it as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure who's responsible for editing the Essex News. It says news, and normally a news outlet has an editor who is responsible for the content. And if it is in fact news, a responsible news outlet would publish a correction. We have two opportunities. Something can be put out right away in the Essex News via the mailing list, and we have town meeting coming up very shortly. I think this information that was included in Essex News gives a misrepresentation of the facts. 2 points simply. We didn't ask for it to be advisory. That was the choice of the select board and council. The select board had to put it on the ballot, did not take the opportunity to do it themselves. Those are two very distinct differences from what was suggested here. So I view this as a way to sort of diminish the effort of the petitioners. And it makes it look as though, yeah, not so important, don't worry about it. It's a diminishing, in my view. I don't think that was the intent, at least I hope not. So, suggestions on the Essex News. The editor should be listed in the Essex News. That person's name should be in there so we know who is responsible for the content. Very, very important. And I think that that editor should read every single thing that's in Essex News. When I was publishing and writing for the Essex Retorter, I took a journalism class. I learned a few of these basic rules. When you publish information about a third party, guess what? You should probably contact that third party and ask them for some comments. Nobody called the petitioners to ask them, why did they put this on the ballot? But there is what I guess is maybe opinion that's included in Essex News in these two sentences or three sentences. I think Essex News is a great service, but when an entity is publishing information strictly about itself, it's technically not news. It's more of a bulletin, or I should say Essex Municipality News or Essex Government News, so that a user who's getting it doesn't get the impression that this is Essex News, because it really isn't. Thank you.
Ken, thanks for the feedback. I'll take responsibility for the newsletter and the content that goes into it. There is absolutely no intent to diminish the work that was done. Add a note here. We'll look at a correction. I think that's a perfectly reasonable place forward. Do not put the blame on the select board. This is something that staff puts out, trying to inform our community about what's happening. Thought we were trying to do the right thing here. Sounds like we missed the mark, so we'll look at how to correct it going forward.
Any other comments from the public online?
I think
Seeing none, we will move forward to entertain a motion for the consent.
Make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented, A through G.
Second?
Seconded, there.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Sorry. With that, we're moving into the business item section of our agenda. First up, interviewing a volunteer to serve on the Police Community Advisory Board. Vince. If you want to come up, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about why you're in.
First of all, wonderful job pronouncing the name. Again, Vinsky City. We live out in Pinewood Manor. Quite honestly, we've been here 6 years, started to put down roots, and when I saw the notice, I was reminded that aside from things around the neighborhood, I really haven't done anything to give back. So, wanted to see if I could chip in with the business of the community.
Guess if you could tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Born California, raised in New York, went to RIT, got out of RIT, went into the Army for 8 years, finished with that, went into engineering, first in Tennessee, then we moved to New Jersey, and then again 6 years ago we moved here. I have a wife of 26 years now, and a 15 and a 17-year-old daughter.
Go ahead, Kendall, you have questions, I know.
I was just going to ask if you have any particular area in the police department that you are personally involved in or interested in that you feel you might be able to lend your expertise to?
No, I won't pretend to know how the business of police work functions. I have family and friends who are policemen, but again, wouldn't pretend to know what help they might need or where I could fit in. I, again, was just more interested in just chipping in where they needed someone.
I'm assuming you read the mission statement.
Of the,
Cab, the police.
I read what I was sent. I guess that would be considered the mission statement. Yes, ma'am.
So how do you see yourself enacting that mission statement, being involved in delivering that to the public?
Well, if I understood the point of the board, it's to, I guess, ensure transparency between the police and the community.
Mhm.
And I guess without knowing the issues that we would face, I'm not honestly entirely sure how I would support that mission. I could promise you I'll be open-minded and do my best to adhere to the mission statement.
Go ahead, I'm good.
To expand on that a little bit, and I'm quoting from the mission, the Police Community Advisory Board representatives will advocate for the systemically marginalized, disenfranchised, and oppressed members of the community. How would you be accessible and advocate for that population?
Well, my experience with that population largely stems from the neighborhood I live in. Very, very strong neighborhood foundation. Great deal of, I guess, discussion and effort goes into supporting that community already in my neighborhood, in the Pinewood Manor Association. Perhaps I can leverage that. I know they're very open to hearing about things like community action, so if nothing else, I could, I guess, use that as a way of spreading the word.
Any other questions?
I'm good. I'm sorry, my computer just shut itself down, so I've lost my.
Kendall, are you good?
I would expect that from your Army experience that you've dealt with diverse communities. Were you stationed overseas or?
Year in Bosnia, year in Iraq.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Okay. So this seat has only been advertised since February 19th. Our process, I won't call it a policy, but our process is to advertise openings for 30 days before making a decision. It's only been a week, so I don't, unless, was this advertised for just an interview? No potential action.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we cannot actually take action tonight, but when that 30-day period has ended, there will be action by the select board one way or another, regardless of whether we get future applications, and someone will be in touch at that point. In closing, do you have any questions for us?
I mean, I'm open to whatever the job entails. I guess, is this a board that currently exists, or are you forming it?
It's a relatively new board within the last year.
July 1st.
Yep. As of July 1st, as Dawn said. So it is a relatively new board, yes.
I would just be curious if there's any examples of things the board has faced so far, and how they've handled those.
I think that they've mostly been
Organizational.
forming and handling organizational items so far. So I don't personally know just yet.
Well, again, thank you very much for seeing me on short notice. I know I just contacted you guys, I think it was Friday, so
We appreciate the interest. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and potential action to schedule select board strategic planning work session. As you'll note in the packet, we typically have an annual strategic planning work session in the spring. It's to discuss the status of town projects, select board priorities for the coming year, and staff have been nice enough to provide some dates
Not
as
now.
proposed
Telling me
dates.
I'm not. I know. I'm sorry.
Any discussion on timing of the setting a date, what times would work, what times would not work, based on the options
Thursdays are
given?
good, not Saturdays. Sorry.
I like any of the evening dates.
I will also note that on Wednesdays, I do work in Montpelier, so 5 p.m. may be cutting it a little close for me to get back on time, but the Thursday dates do work and Saturdays do work for me as well. I don't know, well, any other,
Just a minute. I'm not to where we are with the dates,
Okay.
so just go ahead. You can read the dates out when I'm.
yep, so Wednesday, April 17th from 5 to 8:30. Thursday, April 18th, 5 to 8:30. Saturday, April 27th, 8:30 to 12. Saturday, May 4, 8:30 to 12. Wednesday, May 15th, 5 to 8:30. Thursday, May 16th, from 5 to 8:30.
And both weeks are select. May 16th, there's not a select board meeting Monday night, so Thursday, May 16th.
You also might want to wait until Andy and Ethan are here to finalize it. We can certainly narrow it down and take some feedback, and put that as a
Okay.
top priority.
I will say the only date I'm opposed to is the May 4th date. Not that I couldn't make it work, but I'd prefer that not be the date.
I like the Thursday.
I would second the Thursday.
All right, so we will hold that for action until we have the full select board here. Business item C, discussion about select board meeting schedule for 2024-2025. This is on the agenda simply for discussion per our charter. We cannot set dates until after officers are elected. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this is just for review and discussion to get some feedback as far as the meeting schedule for this coming term. Any thoughts?
I'd like to see, I'm glad they've accommodated all the holidays. Are there any conflicts with any school board meetings?
I believe those are all on Tuesday.
They are
believe
now.
so.
They changed them to Tuesday, so there shouldn't. Looks good to me.
Same here.
The only item that I would like to suggest for discussion is potentially starting at 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. Start earlier, get out earlier. I don't know how others would feel about it, but I'm raising it now so people can have time to think
No
before we
guarantee that
take
works.
action.
Then you get more work stuck in there.
Again, food for thought. Just
I have no issue with it's fine with me.
I can do.
The one it might not work for might be Ethan though.
He and I both start our days fairly early, but any other discussion on this item, or do we have any public feedback on thoughts on our select board meeting schedule for this coming year? Don't see hands in the room. I don't see hands online.
I have a question for staff. Does it work for you guys to get everything all ready for the Monday? I mean, I know some boards have moved their meetings to like Wednesdays or Thursdays to give you more time to get ready for it. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Haven't given it much thought. I think Mondays, we've been doing it. We're used to it. Have no issue continuing it. I think we've talked about Tuesday in the past and floated that idea, just to have an extra day to answer any questions that come in, but it is potentially then conflicting with the school board, so I have no problems continuing with Monday, but
Okay.
up to the will of the board.
Okay, seeing no public comment, and Dawn, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Moving right along. Discussion about the process for the town meeting informational hearing. There was items in the packet, the town meeting flyer, the process by which the meeting will be run this year. Since there is nothing to be voted on, it will be a select board meeting informational hearing. That makes sense. Did anybody have any questions, discussion, comments?
I have one question. Why are we in the gym and not the cafeteria? For sound reasons.
We are going later on tomorrow and on Friday to double check. I think there's audio visual in both. I think the idea is that since we're serving soup, have it in the cafeteria for the town meeting showcase and the food and the eating, and then shift over to the gym for presentations. I think we'll make a final decision tomorrow, and if it doesn't work out great this year, we can always try to adjust next year. But that's the
usually
plan.
there's
as
an
of now.
awful echo, and I remember for graduations, awful echo.
Okay.
So if you're doing a presentation, I'm sure.
Okay. Well,
I was just curious.
no, I can bring that up. I believe, yeah, we're going tomorrow to check it out for the first time, or more formally, first time.
Comments?
Basically, Andy answers for the select board anyway. Questions that are asked, Andy and Greg,
Yeah, it would be the same,
same as
as
we
a
did
a
before.
meeting.
Okay. Yep.
Comments would be,
They're fine.
and our moderator will be in attendance.
That worked well last year.
Any public comment on the process for the informational hearing? Room, none online. Back to my spot in the agenda. At this point, we do have our next 3 business items are for executive session. So at this point, let's skip forward to the file. Board member
I
comments on the
would
reading file?
like to extend our thanks to both Rusty Brink and John Mangan for their service to the town, and to express the select board's condolences to the Lawrence family on their loss.
Agree. Kendall, any?
I'm happy to see the library is going to be participating in the distribution of Narcan. That's great.
And fentanyl testing strips. Packs are important. I will call attention to the Select Board's essential training by VLCT, an informative time. And also, I want to appreciate thanks to staff for, instead of just sending an email on the 8090 Upper Main Street update, including that in the packet so members of the public can see feedback and potential progress toward realizing public-private partnerships and moving forward with those. So with no other comment on the reading file,
I'll just, I'm good. Thank you.
No, go ahead. Yeah, something. Say it.
No, I was just curious. We want to keep a close watch on. I'm glad that Essex Rescue is looking at possibly locating new town facilities there. We just want to make sure that there's no conflicts between what the town needs and what they need, because they are private, right?
yeah, and we are very much at the beginning planning stages. When is the RFP? I know it was in
The
the packet. But I
Deadline was on Friday, so
Okay.
we received 2 responses.
yeah, but yes, those should be taken into consideration as we move forward. So without other comment on the reading file, I would entertain our motions for executive session.
I move that the Select Board enter into executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee in accordance with 1 VSA, Section 313A3, to include the town manager and deputy town manager.
Second,
Second.
Kendall.
I move that the Select Board make the specific finding that general public knowledge.
Yeah, we need to.
What, did I do something?
Yep, so for the first one, we
Sorry.
have a motion and a second.
Sorry.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0.
think I was trying to do it before I lost my screen again. I move that the Select Board make the specific findings that general public knowledge of contracts would place the town at a substantial disadvantage.
Don, for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Kendall. Do we yes, we do vote on these separately. Okay. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0.
I move that the Select Board enter into executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or an employee in accordance with 1 VSA, Section 313A3, to discuss contracts pursuant of 1 VSA 313A1A to include the town manager.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0.
All right, wait a minute. I gotta find the other one. I move that the Select Board make the specific finding that general public knowledge of pending or probable civil litigation to which the public body is or may be a party of would place the town at a substantial disadvantage.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kendall. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0.
I move that the Select Board enter into executive session to discuss pending or probable civil litigation to which the public body is or may be a party pursuant of 1 VSA 313A1E to include the town manager and deputy manager.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kendall. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0. And that concludes our business items, our agenda. We will not be coming back after executive session. So thank you for attending and have a great evening.